Welcome to Whips in the Dungeon 101.45. Today we're going to talk about fighting whips. Whips can be used in martial arts and in fighting circumstances. They're not an ideal attacking weapon, but they can be used in self-defense, and you can attack with them. But we're going to specifically talk about Peter Jack's latigo dago build, and I have two of his latigo dago whips. One of his earlier builds, and then a build that he did in 2020. And I know there's some other reviews on YouTube. Actually, Mistress Mercer has a review where she talks about a latigo dago build, but this is going to be a little different because we're going to compare two different latigo dago whips built by the same whip maker, but built about a decade apart. The whip that you've heard me refer to as the Jesus Jack whip was Peter's latigo dago build around the 2009-2010 time frame. And this latigo dago build that has the number 44 plaited into the handle, absolutely beautiful work. It's 32 plait handle with a 16 plait thong. He put 44 in that because this is Peter's 44th year of plaiting whips. He started when he was 15 years old. So back to these two whips. The reason I named this whip the Jesus Jack whip is right out of the box. I pulled this whip out, and the very first time I threw it, it went exactly where I pointed it. Well, how come is it so accurate? Well, it's so accurate because it has a little bit different kind of shot load than what Peter puts in his target bullwhip. And I don't know a lot about the details of how he does it. That's kind of the whip maker's secret. But I do know that the shot extends down the thong. My understanding is there's some shot all the way to the keeper. So that it makes the whip more accurate, more of a beeline, straight to its target. And when it hits, it has a little more impact because of the shot. The heel knot, I found out, in his early builds was a 2-ounce heel knot. And I'm going to say I love it. Part of the reason I love it is because the whip's not overly heavy, and in dungeon play, when I'm throwing to a long play dungeon song that might be 9 minutes long, I don't know how many hundreds of repetitions I'm throwing, or maybe even 1,000 repetitions, but it doesn't wear my arm out. Okay, so over the years, Peter decided to make this whip a little heavier, and I think from a fighting perspective, his new build is probably better for fighting because it's significantly heavier. It has a 3-ounce counterweight in the heel knot, lead counterweight, so this whip could be turned around and the handle could actually be used almost like a blackjack in self-defense. But the result is the profile is a little bit thicker. I guess I should have done that, held these up side by side so you could compare the profile. The profile is a little bit thicker. The handle is a little bit thicker. The heel knot, Turk's head, counterweight is 1 ounce heavier. You wouldn't think 1 ounce would make a whole lot of difference. But let me tell you, when you're throwing a long play song, unless you're Popeye or you go and you work out in the gym, this whip is going to end up feeling heavy in your hand by the end of the song. So I love the whip. It's a good finishing whip because it's heavier, carries a heavier punch, just as accurate as the Jesus Jack whip. But the reason I'm saying this is because some of you out there may see this review and decide you want to try a Peter Jack latigo dago build. My recommendation from Dex's perspective, if you order a Peter Ladago build from Peter Jack and your intention is to play with it in the dungeon and you're not intending to train with it as a fighting whip, you should ask him specifically for his older build that has the 2-ounce heel weight and not the 3-ounce heel weight. I think you're going to find that it's a second generation of Jesus Jack Whip for you in the dungeon, and I hope you enjoy this review.